To Pakistan, where Christians are increasingly the target of deadly attacks, in part due to a severe blasphemy law in the Islamic Republic. The most high-profile case involves Asia Bibi, a Roman Catholic woman recently acquitted of blasphemy. With Christmas approaching, we're taking a closer look at what life is like for Pakistan's Christians. DW's Zubaida Mir met members of the Christian community in Islamabad.
Christmas is a favourite time of year for this Christian family in Islamabad. The Corkers appreciate being together, especially as their lives were completely turned upside down 7 years ago. Basharat Corker was falsely accused of blasphemy, jailed and acquitted 5 months later. In that time, he lost his job and home, but is grateful he didn't lose his life too. Although a free man now, Basharat's detention continues to haunt him.
We always live in fear, and because of this, we feel insecure. Mentally, I'm numb. So when we talk about the future, I think, what kind of future can we have? It all looks bleak. The law and policies here need to be implemented properly.
Blasphemy is an extremely dangerous and emotive subject in Pakistan, and Asia Bibi's name will forever be associated with it. The Catholic labourer spent 8 years on death row after being accused of insulting Islam. She was recently acquitted of all charges, which sparked violent protests across the country. Some hardliners called for Asia and the judges involved in the ruling to be hanged. No one convicted of blasphemy has ever been legally executed in Pakistan, but there are plenty of examples of people who have been killed by lynch mobs just after being accused of it. And it's religious minorities here who are disproportionately affected by the controversial laws. Pakistan's Christians make up around 2% of the population and have been the target of escalating attacks in recent years. Human rights groups claim accusations of blasphemy are seen as an easy way to settle personal disputes, as they are hard to disprove. But the acquittal of Asia Bibi also provides a ray of hope for this pastor.
The fact that an innocent woman can be sentenced to death has made us scared. It will set a bad precedent where they can arrest anyone and prosecute them. So when we heard that Asia Bibi was finally acquitted, you cannot believe how happy we were. We went to churches and offered prayers of thanks to God.
We weren't fearful when we were young, but we do have some fears now. For example, if there are gatherings, we don't go outdoors. When children go to church and they see armed guards, they do ask, why is there so much security?
Attacks will continue to happen, and no matter what, we'll remain united under the name of Jesus.
For many Christians, the fact that Asia Bibi has been freed is a Christmas miracle they could not have dreamed of. And even though she remains in hiding over the festive period, her plight provides some seasonal cheer and optimism for what the future holds.
So what can be done to protect Pakistan's religious minorities? For that, let's talk to Rimal Mohideen from Amnesty International South Asia. She joins us from Colombo in Sri Lanka. Thanks for being with us. Asia Bibi, no problem. Asia Bibi might be out of jail, but she has to remain in hiding for fear of being murdered. How dangerous is it for religious minorities in Pakistan?
Well, I think the short answer to your question is Pakistan is very dangerous for religious minorities. We've seen plenty of evidence of the mere whiff of blasphemy sort of leading to a death sentence, if not in the courts, then in the streets, as we saw in the case of Mashal Khan, as we've seen in the case of Asia Bibi, Rimsha Masih, and we've seen that since the 1990s, scores of Christians, Ahmadis, even Muslims have been accused of acts like blasphemy or desecrating the Quran or even misusing religious epithets. And there's plenty of evidence to prove why Pakistan is dangerous for minorities.
Now, Pakistan is an Islamic republic with a constitution guaranteeing freedom of religion, yet non-Muslims are often discriminated against in Pakistan. What can be done to change that culture of discrimination and indeed persecution?
Well, I think that the most important thing to note is that besides there is a Minister of Human Rights that has taken on this quite strongly, and it is encouraging to see things like empowerment packages being announced. But until there are key amendments made to the blasphemy laws in the country, these steps will remain cosmetic.
Do you think that the West should be doing more to protect people like Asia Bibi?
I think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, the onus is on the government of Pakistan to reform the system that leads to systemic discrimination against minorities. But the West can certainly do more. In fact, I mean, we've seen plenty of support for Asia Bibi coming from the West. We've seen campaigns coming out of the country, and I think that the more voices of support Asia has, the better.
Thank you so much for talking with us. That was from Amnesty International for Southeast Asia. Speaking to us from Colombo in Sri Lanka, that was Rimal Mohideen. You're watching DW News. Still to come, the end of an era in Germany as the country's last underground coal mine closes. We meet the workers who kept it running 1,200 meters below the ground.